Hello and good evening, listeners. Welcome to the second edition of The Tonight Show with me, Edward R. This show brings you live radio interviews with newsmakers and personalities making news headlines in Sierra Leone. You can be heard on the show by sending your comments or questions to www.facebook.com/thetonightshow.slbc or www.twitter.com/EdwardArena, or you can send a text message to 078 546 474. You can send a text message to 078 54 64 74, or you can send your comments to Facebook or Twitter on the address I announced earlier. Coming up in tonight's show, the Anti-Corruption Commission is an institution set up by an Act of Parliament. The Commission provides the lead in the crusade against corruption in Sierra Leone and partners with other key institutions to prevent, eradicate, and or suppress corruption and corrupt practices. But the question asked by many Sierra Leoneans is, who polices the police when the Commission is deemed corrupt by its own National Public Perception Survey? To answer this question and many others in the fight against corruption, my guest for tonight's show is the man who heads the Anti-Corruption Commission Outreach and Public Education Department, Shirley Davis. Good evening and welcome to The Tonight Show.
Good evening, Aloysius. It's my pleasure to be here.
Mr. Shirley Davis started working for the Anti-Corruption Commission some 10 years ago. Before his appointment as the Director of Public Education and Outreach at the SEC, he was the first Director of the National Anti-Corruption Strategy Secretariat. Welcome to The Tonight Show once more, and we'll go for a short break, and when we come back, we'll start with the questions you want to ask.
Up to a new development on SLBC on FM 99.9. It's The Tonight Show. Here, you get the chance to listen to interviews with newsmakers and personalities across the nation. The program goes beyond stories making the headlines. It's frank, honest, upfront, and exclusive. Only on SLBC.
Join Edward Aloysius Renner every Monday, Tuesday, and Friday for The Tonight Show on SLBC at 8:15 p.m. Don't miss out, as your comments through SMS, Twitter, and Facebook will be aired. SLBC takes you further and you stay close.
It's your voice, my voice.
Well, like you've just heard from that trailer, the program speaks volume about things happening in the country. Now, Mr. Davis, your commission did a National Public Perception Survey, which ranked many institutions corrupt, including the police and the National Revenue Authority. They were on top of this ranking according to the public survey you did. Is this survey anything to go by?
Well, certainly, like the survey indicate, this was a perception of the people in 2010 with regards corruption in Sierra Leone. It was not an opinion expressed by the Commission, but the people of Sierra Leone expressed that kind of opinion about institutions in governance. And the Sierra Leone police, as well as customs, were ranked as the most corrupt institutions in Sierra Leone in 2010 perception survey.
Now, your reports, of course, like you've mentioned, you are reported to be corrupt according to your last perception survey. Is the SEC corrupt?
Well, precisely, like the survey indicated, that about 29.4% of those that were interviewed believed that the ACC has got staff that are corrupt. Well, of course, we did not take that with a pinch of salt. We know that in certain perceptions of the people, that some element of truth may abound. So we have always been emphasizing the aspect of transparency.
Some elements, like you mentioned, not all the 29% is true about the ACC being corrupt.
Well, of course, not every respondent agree with that perception. What we should, take into consideration is the fact that many a time the perception of the people may not be factual. And sometimes, people may say the ACC is corrupt because, they take complaints sometimes and they don't see an outcome of their complaints.
Why should they take complaints and don't see outcome?
Well, it is not always that complaints fall within the ambits of the work that we do.
Okay.
There are certain complaints that come to the attention of the Commission, which have got to do with administrative weaknesses in certain institutions. And for those complaints, we don't investigate them. We may sometimes refer those matters to the respective institutions for action to be taken. And sometimes the reports are, barely vexatious, and then there's no element of truth in some of the complaints.
Now, Mr. Davis, you once said on this medium that the ACC's National Public Perception of Corruption Survey report was not aimed at naming and shaming corrupt people and or institutions, but was released to help minimize corruption through public sensitization. This seems very hard to be construed by many of those who listened when the survey was out. Do you want to make some clarifications there?
Well, certainly. I think perception surveys, like all other perception surveys in the world, is to draw attention to the fact that, there exist some challenges in certain aspects of governance. And particularly so for perception, for the 2010 perception survey. What it's indicated is that, some attention has to be drawn to the fact that, the public are talking about corruption being rampant in some sections of our governance institutions. And I think it is but proper that the leadership in some of those government institutions should take steps to deal with the problem.
Now, in the area you're talking about not naming and shaming corrupt people, and you're actually using this to sensitize the public. Mr. Davis, if something is in public domain, is it not tantamount to public ridicule?
Well, you see, it is how people really take it. I think perception surveys are done all over the world. Transparency International, for example, is doing a perception survey on countries in terms of how they're ranked, on corruption across the world. That is not to shame any country, but I think it is a wake-up call to say that, hey, something has to be done to deal with a problem which is found inherent in certain communities, in certain societies. I don't think it's a naming and shaming. I think it's a call for attention that some action has to be taken. And I think that many countries have taken it positively. And for Sierra Leone, for example,
it should be the same.
I think it should be the same. We have made some tremendous efforts over the years because of our ranking. In the past, we've been ranked one of the worst, countries, but we've seen improvement because that when this ranking started, we took steps as a country to deal with the problem, and we can see that successively over the past period, we have seen Sierra Leone, climbing up the ladder.
The ladder of not being a corrupt country. Is that
yes,
what you're saying?
exactly. Meaning that some steps have been taken and that there's some level of transparency and accountability in governance.
Now, as a commission, how much have you been able to uphold the various values of integrity, independence, and impartiality as stipulated in Section 9(1) of the 2008 Anti-Corruption Act?
Well, like you rightly mentioned, it was one of the considerations that we had. That if an institution like ours is to stand the test of time, such an institution must be made independent. And it is enshrined in our Anti-Corruption Act, and we have observed the independence of the Commission, which is why we don't refer cases to the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice. We've been given the prosecutorial powers to investigate and as well prosecute our cases in court, and that is what we've been doing exactly without interference from government.
And now we don't know whether this is bad press or it's that fact. Let's go to a story which was written on the 30th of May in 2012 by the Independent Observer newspaper, a front page article which says the anti-corruption funds UDM with 1 million leons. You were saying you're going through or you're working in line with Section 9(1) of the 2008 Anti-Corruption Act, which states that you should have integrity, you should be independent and impartial.
That is preposterous. I wonder how, an institution like ours would fund a political party. We found it, completely out of place, and it is something which has not been cross-checked by whosoever did that article, and we feel it's a shame that a media house would publish such a report. We all know that the ACC is audited, by the Auditor Generals in Sierra Leone. And, our books are open for, examination to see whether indeed it is written in our books that 1 million leones, such a ridiculous amount of money was issued